Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Best Practices on Achieving DevSecOps in the BFSI sector. This virtual workshop is brought to you by Express Computer in partnership with Addteq. I am your host, Govind Chaudhary, correspondent with Express Computer. The BFSI sector leads other sectors in terms of digital transformation and initiatives. It is often said to be a pioneer in adoption of emerging technologies. However, the quest for building new apps or solutions is leading to a lot of gaps in security. This calls for an approach which integrates security with software development so that security is embedded by design in all software solutions. The approach called DevSecOps, it can help firms in the BFSI sector track all security related changes or vulnerabilities in all the stages of the software process. This webinar will discuss techniques and best practices in the relevant use cases on how organizations can achieve the best out of their DevSecOps journey. But before we go ahead with the session, I will read out some house rules. This audio and video webinar is being broadcasted live and it will be available on demand as on our website after the webinar ends. We will have polls in between the webinar. I request you all to participate in the same. We will have a round of question and answer at the end of the webinar. However, you can send in your questions at any time during the webinar using the question box, and we will ask our speakers to take those questions. If you face any technical issues, please try to refresh your browser or else reach out to our team using the same questions text box. If any of your questions are unanswered, we will connect with you over email to address the same. After this webinar ends, you will receive a feedback form. Now I welcome our speakers. Swapnil Kosre, Marketing Manager, Addteq APAC. Deepak Sharma, Leading Head, Account Manager, Addteq. Deepthi Anayakudi, Technical Account Manager, Atlassian. And Himanshu Chettri, Enterprise Architect, Addteq APAC. That's all from my side now. So without taking more of your time, I invite Swapnil Kosre, Marketing Manager at Addteq, to take the floor. Swapnil, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Govind. Good morning, everyone, and hello to all. Welcome to today's webinar on best practices on achieving DevSecOps in BFSI sector. I am Swapnil Kosare, Marketing Manager at Addteq APAC. I will be your host for today and moderator for today's webinar. Before moving ahead, I would like to highlight few things. First one, we have free DevSecOps assessment offer, wherein Addteq DevOps expert will help you find the gap of where you are and where you want to be in a DevSecOps term, and help you creating action plan to achieve, to bridge that gap. Also, we will share a cool handouts like ebooks on DevSecOps on your registered email ID. Please stick till around the end of the webinar and fill in the feedback form at the end of the webinar to avail the free assessment offer. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our eminent speaker, Deepak Sharma, who is our delivery head at Addteq APAC. He has 17 years of experience in IT industry. He has spearheaded organizations like ZBR, TechCam, Wipro before joining Addteq. Thank you, Deepak, for joining us.
Hi all. Good morning and welcome to.
Good morning. Yeah. Second, we have Deepthi from Ms. Deepthi from Atlassian, who is a technical account manager at Atlassian for the APAC region. She resides in Bangalore, India. She has more than 9 years experience in Atlassian ecosystem. Thank you, Deepthi, for joining us.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here and welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Deepthi. Third, we have with us Mr. Himanshu Chettri, who is Enterprise Architecture Solution at Addteq Inc. He has 10 years of, 17 years plus experience in DevOps and Agile tools. He's our go-to guy if you have any complex technical problem from Atlassian implementation to DevOps to DevSecOps, and he's the right guy to answer your all the queries. Welcome, Himanshu.
Thank you, Swapnil, and hi everyone. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Now moving ahead, I would like to do a very brief intro about Addteq. So I will be sharing the screen. So yeah, about Addteq. Our expertise lies in operation delivery excellence by leveraging tools for architecture and automation and delivery management, be it agile, traditional, or multi-speed IT enterprises. We have 15 years of global experience in DevOps and ALM. Addteq is also one of the top Atlassian Platinum partner. Addteq is also select tier partner with AWS and Atlassian certified top vendor on Atlassian marketplace with 8+ Atlassian verified plugins. This definitely makes Addteq as a preferred choice. We also take prides in our expertise in SDLC, Agile, Lean methodology, expertise in system integration and automation, Atlassian solution architecture, and cloud infra and infra automation. These are some of our clients' name across the globe from India, USA, Southeast Asia, and the rest of the world. We also have some of our ingrown products, that is excellent table, that is a spreadsheet for Confluence, then Unstoppable, which helps visually impaired people to use Atlassian tools, and Code Factory, that is a managed hosting of all of your development tools. Now I would like to invite Mr. Deepak to discuss on how DevSecOps is different from DevOps and the importance of DevSecOps in BFSI. Over to you, Deepak.
Thank you, Swapnil. So today I will go through DevSecOps adoption in BFSI sector and about that what are the practices that in DevSecOps which can be followed across industry, not even only in BFSI sector. So over the past 20 years, digital innovation has transformed the way everyone interacts in their social environment, be it shopping, it's banking, automobiles, education, travel, health, and many more industries. So businesses over time have learned to embrace digital transformation in a bid to remain competitive and adapt to the ever-changing landscape. On top of that, COVID-19 has had a tremendous impact on our lives and increased pressure to adopt the digital way of our lives. The pandemic not only impacted the global economy, but also in terms of our social behavior and finances, the way we are doing our transactions, opening the accounts, onboarding, paying our bills, and even the way we and our teams are working. Especially in BFSI, we have seen that from decades, it was the norm that that employee would be working from offices, and remote working was perceived as something unusual and as not a very effective way of working. But things have changed since COVID-19 pandemic. It is not the focus on the digital have just kicked off after COVID-19. Even long before COVID-19, companies in the BFSI sector were leading a range of digital initiatives. And while these initiatives were necessary to remain competitive, they also brought problems. Making use of modern application design approaches and navigating cloud migrations can create many gaps, which can threaten to achieve our reliability and security of all the digital services. So there are few stats are there that global average total cost of a data breach in 2020 was 3.8 million. Average time to identify and contain a data breach was 280 days, and average savings from containing a breach in less than 200 versus 200 plus days, 1 million USD in average. So there is a lot at stake. Even in a recent study from APAC region, nearly 3/4 of IT leaders are saying that COVID-19 has added additional threat to their services and led them to speed up their data security plans along with digital services. CIOs now wants to deliver a sustainable digital change without compromising on security. This is where DevSecOps comes into play. So DevSecOps brings the concept of security early in the application development lifecycle, thus allowing for risks and vulnerabilities to be identified before they impact the quality or delivery of the application under development. According to a verified market research, the global DevSecOps was valued at 2.18 billion in 2019, which is now increasing at 30% of rate and projected to reach at 17 billion by 2027. And BFSI accounted for the largest market share in DevSecOps area. So what is DevSecOps? And from this, where these terms emerged, before moving to the other BFSI stats and practices, I want to talk about DevOps and DevSecOps terms for a few moments. To begin with, DevSecOps in many ways was born out of the last global recession. Even though it was even before that, it was there. But after last global recession in 2008, 2009, as the economy was reeling, enterprises looked to increase efficiency through greater automation and agility, which shifted the approach from CapEx to OpEx. So agile infrastructure movement was also a boom, which kicked off a swift and ceaseless climb to cloud adoption. So DevOps then emphasizes more on the people and culture to improve the collaboration between development and operations. And even the other IT stakeholders such as architecture and information security was also considered, but not that much focus was given to those areas. But after COVID-19 crisis, and due to COVID-19 crisis, there was a massive disruption was there by the current pandemic, and which has increased additional focus on security on top of the DevSecOps, which is accelerating the shift to DevSecOps, the next phase of agile computing that brings security automation into development lifecycle, to bring security practices to the left of the cycle rather than waiting till the cycle end to implement security practices. And the security controls can be integrated into the daily work of development and operations, making the security everyone's responsibility. But for IT teams, the most important components here is to focus was to apply like code analysis, change management, compliance monitoring, uh, threat investigation, vulnerability assessment, security trainings, etc. This adoption also can lead to security functions such as identity and access management, firewalling, and vulnerability scanning being enabled programmatically throughout the DevOps cycle, in turn leaving security teams free to set policies. If we coming back on the BFI sector, all financial institutions have invested or in the process to or in planning to invest heavily in the security teams and infrastructures. According to Deloitte and Financial Services ISAC study, financial institutions were committing before COVID-19, they were committing 6 to 14% of their information technology budget to cybersecurity, which has increased 2 to 3 times in this pandemic. According to another research by Kaspersky, financial services organizations spend around 3 times more than non-BFSI companies. Alongside such a heavy commitment, these entities also face severe consequences if any mistakes are made or customer data is hacked. So the dilemma for IT teams is how to manage this digital growth taking place around continuously growing data, how to transform the data into insights for internal offerings, and how to keep this approach secure over time. And these practices are not very easy to introduce and implement in IT organization with, especially with where the legacy in systems and infra is available. So as per different studies on adoption of DevSecOps, DevSecOps is believed to have only 20 to 30% market penetration till now. 62% of DevOps adopter, I'm not talking about DevSecOps, DevOps adopters has been using it only from 1 to 5 years. So just 15% think their DevOps adoption is fully mature. Developers outnumber security professional by 500 to 1, which is a huge number, huge gap. 78% think that demand for technical security skill is increasing. So the BFI sector is eyeing on the application of DevSecOps to focus more on service delivery speed and security, as there is a lot at stake. Financial institutions that are currently using the DevOps processes have understood the need of implementing DevSecOps and shifting towards complete adoption of this. So looking at all these stats and numbers, if I have to summarize this, summarize it, the financial institutions are going towards cloud transformation to better engage their clients through increased development of apps and infrastructure as a code. This space is increasingly shifting code base to third-party open libraries, which introduce more risks and security concerns. Financial institutions continue to be primary target for cyber attacks. Even with the available budgets, there is a shortage of skilled security professionals. So the underlying message is security can't be compromised and interfere with the pace of digital business growth. So security is required, but it can't take a backseat. So what does this mean in practice? So the part of answer is how to integrate security and development together so that everyone can collaborate during development lifecycle. This should be based on ongoing flexible collaboration between everyone involved, from architects to site reliability engineers to security operations team, to create security as a code. And security analysts receive regular data flow at an advanced level to analyze security threats in all the data flows, because not knowing what is your data can expose to customers or enterprises to to significant security audit and compliance risk. It can it can generate a lot of I mean, it can generate a lot of fines if your data practices violate any kind of privacy regulations like GDPR, PDPR, or any RBI regulation. So by consolidating all this data and information into contextual and actionable insights, for the security teams can prioritize threats to resolve, prevent problems, and recover faster. And to implement these DevSecOps across teams, so there are few areas are there which we need to consider. First is source code analysis. This involves looking at modern application and microservices code in component manner so that vulnerability can be identified and isolated quickly. Compliance monitoring, this helps in software and security team be ready on for audit at any time. This means that your operations and cloud infrastructure should be in a constant state of compliance, including gathering real-time evidence of GDPR compliance, PCI, ISO compliances, and many more. Change management, improving this process can increase your speed and efficiency by allowing anyone to submit changes based on the objective, then determine whether these changes are good or bad. Next one is on threat detection. So this identify the potential emerging threats to ensure that your whole team is able to respond quickly, not just security, and all necessary noise is removed. Vulnerability assessment, this uses real-time code inspection of new vulnerability alongside code analysis. And the last one is security framework and best practices. This covers how you enable and onboard your software developers and IT engineers with modern, progressive, and security guidelines. If I have to summarize this, using these steps, you can look at how to integrate DevOps and security together. This will involve greater collaboration, communication, and shared responsibility for your teams. Even DevSecOps is not adopted and implemented yet. These practices can help you in securing organizations' digital initiative. It takes time to develop an organization's culture, mindset, and maturity toward practices that fit in their culture. So it is not the process that or should be rushed, but continuous adoption towards maturity is a journey which everyone should be taking. So with this, I want to conclude and to talk about our next topic, best practices to achieve DevSecOps using Atlassian tool. I would like to pass control to Swapnil.
Hi Deepak, thank you. That was really very insightful information. And as you said, it's nowadays where it was a continuous integration, continuous deployment. Now we have to look into continuous security as well. And we have to think accordingly and we have to plan accordingly. So the best thing is to integrate security in DevOps and seamlessly and effortlessly. Once it is done, then it should work autonomously on its own. Thank you, Deepak, for the insight. Now it's time for poll question 1. So poll question 1, what is the level of DevSecOps adoption in your organization? First is planning to start, beginners, you have started, but starting one, intermediate, and the expert level. So we have a 30-second for the answer. So yeah, we'll be waiting for your answer. Please select the option over here. And meanwhile, please ask question in Q&A tab, which is at the right side bottom of your screen. So yeah, we have got the answer. So 46% of responders saying that they are planning to start DevSecOps. 29% are saying they are beginners, 20% are saying they are at intermediate level, and 6% are saying that they are at expert level and they have already implemented DevSecOps. So this already gives us a good idea that yeah, majority of us are starting to drive the DevSecOps initiative in the organization. So moving ahead, a majority of BFSI companies are using Jira or other DevOps Atlassian tools like JSM, Bitbucket, Bamboo. So natural question comes, how to achieve DevSecOps with Atlassian tools? Now I would like to invite Ms. Deepthi to throw light on best practices to achieve DevSecOps with Jira and other Atlassian ecosystem. Over to you, Deepthi.
Thank you, Swapna. So let me share my screen. All right, so thank you, Swapnil, and hey everyone, great to be with you today. My name is Deepthi and I'm a technical account manager here at Atlassian based in Bangalore, India. Over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about some of the best practices to achieve DevSecOps and how Atlassian tools can help with integrating security to be part of a developer's workflow. The development environment is changing. Software teams are adopting agile delivery practices using open source tools, sophisticated programming languages, and CI/CD pipelines, all of which enables developers to build faster and deploy more frequently. With faster builds and frequent deploys, managing security becomes a real issue and a bottleneck. Traditionally, developers write code, then the ops or security team does all the security tests and deploys. This process worked when releases were infrequent, but for today, security needs to be more integrated and automated at every stage of the delivery pipeline. Finding and fixing security issues early means that teams can ship secure software from day one. This is one of the core DevOps practices. Finding and fixing these security issues in code is hard for several reasons. Developers aren't security experts. They're also more interested in building software than spending time on security. 2, it's time consuming. Finding and fixing security vulnerabilities is an ongoing process. Hackers are always finding new ways to break into systems, so the types of checks needed are always on the rise. Keeping up to date on all things security is a job on its own. Sorry. Open source tools and dependencies. I'm so sorry. Just give me 1 second. Open source tools and dependencies. With software teams relying on more and more microservices, many of which are open source, developers have to track and manage security vulnerabilities, not only in the tools they build, but also in each of these microservices. If you look at some stats, at least 90% of applicants utilize open source packages, whilst data shows at least 70% of these contain a security flaw. This poses a massive challenge for development teams to stay up to date with their product risks and know what to rectify. As Atlassian's pride itself on shepherding small development teams to grow into large ones, we have inherited a responsibility as Bitbucket to educate these growing teams about best practices and offer solutions to our customers that can be easily implemented. At Atlassian, we believe that security responsibility should shift left, which means that developers fix security issues as part of the development process. The earlier you can detect security issues or bugs, the cheaper and faster it is to fix them. And Atlassian tools' seamless integration with security tools in every step of our DevOps process will help you to find and monitor security vulnerabilities without slowing down dev teams and impacting release deadlines. To ensure you're shipping secure software, to track things in operation via Jira Service Desk and Ops Genie in order to maximize your end-to-end security posture. Hence, to enable security into developers' workflow, we have deepened our integrations with leading security tools so we can better assist two key users of Bitbucket. One, for security analysts, we want to offer them visibility into existing vulnerabilities and license issues so they understand how severe their open source risk is and are able to prioritize what needs to be resolved. Two, for developers, we want to enable them to understand exactly what risk exists within code bases they contribute to daily, allowing them to proactively resolve these issues before they are escalated to the security teams. Now, we have recently introduced Bitbucket's Cloud Security tab, which enables DevOps teams secure their workflow right alongside their code by integrating with leading third-party security vendors such as Snyk, Bridgecrew, SonarQube, SonarSource, McAfee, Anchor, and 42Crunch. Our APIs are also open for other vendors or even custom policy enforcement. Code Insights for Bitbucket Cloud brings key information from your favorite security, testing, and monitoring tools into the pull request view, giving reviewers insights into code quality and alerting them of issues without having to context switch to discover them. Now, we know that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to DevOps. That's why we're empowering development teams to choose the right mix of DevSecOps tools that work best for them. Code Insights isn't limited to help detect open source vulnerabilities either. For example, Bridgecrew stands infrastructure as code, files, and orchestration frameworks like Kubernetes, Terraform, and CloudFormation for misconfigurations and policy violations, giving developers insights into cloud security issues within the pull request view. Now, vulnerabilities in software companies may be discovered months or years into their use. Once and done security review is not enough. With Bitbucket's integrated CI/CD tool, Bitbucket Pipelines, you can integrate security scanning into your pipeline. So code is checked for security vulnerabilities continuously and validated in testing and staging environments. And finally, fixing security issues is a cross-functional effort. IT teams work with developers to identify the issue, deploy the fix, and project managers or business teams need to be in the loop to communicate to customers. Now, all these teams are already on Jira, which makes collaborating and prioritizing easy work. So you don't have to use different tools to reach out to different teams. Now, let's have a quick look at how our partnership with Snyk, which is a seamless part of Bitbucket Cloud, can help achieve these goals in three ways. One, proactive repo scanning within the Bitbucket Cloud UI. Two, PR analysis within Code Insights. And three, using a Snyk pipe within Bitbucket Pipelines. Let's have a closer look at these in detail. This integration with Snyk is centered around a new security tab inside Bitbucket Cloud, where you'll be able to start your journey to see risks that exist in your dependency code files and container images, so you can resolve them before they are escalated by your security team. Once you've completed the integration steps, you can automatically import your first repository. Snyk will scan for package dependencies in your manifest as well as Docker files if you happen to have those in source control as well. And once your import is successfully completed, you will see security insights on the total number of vulnerabilities found in your repository. Better yet, these will be grouped as categories of high, medium, and low. Clicking on a manifest will yield additional details on vulnerabilities found in your dependencies. Firstly, contextual information will be displayed. And secondly, advice on how to quickly fix these issues so they don't remain a problem for long. Now, as we discussed, identifying vulnerabilities within your code base as they emerge over time is very important. But we also want to ensure developers are aware of the risks they're about to introduce when reviewing a PR to merge. Now, as code is pushed to PR, Snyk can scan it for new vulnerabilities and license issues, enabling teams to fix throughout the entire code review process. Now, let's say we want to deploy this app. Leveraging the pipeline CI/CD workflow, you can set up a Snyk pipe within your template file, similar to what's shown on the screen here. Like for previous scans across Code Insights and Snyk tab, a pipe can act as a final check against your manifest files and containers, whilst also including a redundancy scan into your build process. Based on your custom config, you can test and monitor at any point of your CI workflow. Results are then displayed from Bitbucket Pipeline's output view and can also be monitored from the Snake platform. This can be used to prevent high security vulnerabilities from going through the build unnoticed. Now, as you know, true transformation takes more than the right tools. You need the practices that make new ways of working stick. That's why Atlassian ships a team playbook that has over 40 practical team practices that helps your team do everything from running feedback sessions to working through change management. You will also find lots of useful resources on how we practice DevOps within the company. So in conclusion, as more development teams evolve their processes and embrace new tools, they'll need to be diligent with security. DevSecOps is a clinical process and should be continuously iterated and applied to every new cloud deployment. Exploits and attackers are constantly evolving, and it is important that modern security teams, software teams, evolve as well. A good place to start DevSecOps testing is to automate your testing with Bitbucket pipelines. Also, be sure to review the test automation tools and resources available on the Atlassian marketplace. Thank you so much for your time today. We hope that you are excited about starting or accelerating your DevSecOps journey with Atlassian tools. And with this, I hand it back to Swapnil.
Thank you, Deepthi. That was really helpful, useful, and I guess it will be definitely helpful to our audience, as majority of them are using Atlassian tools. So it's time for the poll question 2. So yeah, the question is, what are your DevSecOps initiative challenges? First is lack of expertise, multiple dashboard and fragmented report. So basically you have to use multiple tools. So every tools is given reports differently, then multiple application security tools to manage, as every tool has a different function, and how to integrate it with Jira or other issue tracking system. Manual application security testing and less frequent application security scans, and lack of visibility for the security of software supply chain and open source dependency. So we have 30 seconds over here for the answer. Also, please ask questions. There is a Q&A box towards the bottom of your screen. We love to hear from you. So yeah, we have the results. So 53% people are saying the lack of expertise. 18% are saying multiple dashboard and fragmented reports. 38% are saying that security tools, multiple, and integration is a major challenge for them to integrate with issue tracking tools like Jira. Then 29% are saying that manual testing and the frequency of security is a challenge as it goes towards the end. Then you have to revert a lot of work over there. And there are high risks that it will get detected towards the end of your delivery or the delivery of your project, sorry, your application itself. So yeah, that could become a bigger challenge. Lack of visibility for the security software supply chain and open source dependency, it's again a very high 47%, as we are dependent on open source tools nowadays. Yep. So now we have one question coming, which is very relevant to our next topic. How many application security tools we need to use for DevSecOps? How to manage them? I would like to invite Mr. Himanshu to discuss our success story where we implemented DevSecOps in one of the biggest global investment banks situated in US, which is running operation in 36 countries and having around 10K plus users and 50K plus employees. We will discuss how we help them to solve majority of challenges like identifying security risks, manual testing, multiple dashboard reporting, open source dependency. Meanwhile, you can ask a question in Q&A tab. Over to you, Himanshu.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Swapnil. And hi, everyone. Deepthi's presentation was great. I think we got a really good overview of the core ideas and concepts behind DevSecOps. And we looked at some practical strategies that you can use for implementing DevSecOps using the Atlassian tools like Jira software and Bitbucket, as well as integration with some of the scanning tools like Snyk. Now, in our particular case study or example, customer example, we were dealing with one of the largest global investment banks in the world, and they had a unique set of challenges. And I'll try to walk you through what we had to tackle, and hopefully you'll have some useful takeaways for some of the strategies that you can adapt in your organization as well. So we'll look at the problem statement a bit in a more general way, as well as specific to this particular customer. And as we dive into the details of this particular customer, we will talk about our approach to come up with a solution to automate a lot of their issues and what the end impact was. And we'll also talk about what a sample timeline or high-level project plan would look like if you were to implement this in your organization as well. So if we look at a problem in a more general way, I think a lot of us can relate to the fact that the development is going in this continuous loop, and especially as you adapt to DevOps, your loop from going from development to testing to finding bugs, and then fixing bugs, and then releasing the software, right? You are continuously going through this loop and cycle. But the big question mark is, where do you exactly introduce application security? And those of us, especially who are dealing with a lot of legacy processes in some of the organizations, very well know that it's very challenging, because developers don't want to be interrupted in terms of having some additional burden to tackle security unless they really have to. And then on the other hand, the management and the stakeholders don't want the release to be delayed when you start doing some last-minute application security scans in order to approve or reject a release from going out. And then the security team and the application security team, they are concerned with what's going to happen once the application is deployed in production. So you have all of these different stakeholders with their own interests, and it's very difficult to align it, especially in terms of how you can fit it into the development process. Now, in terms of this particular customer as well, they were struggling with similar issues. And like I said, they are one of the world's largest corporate investment banking company. And what that means is they have tens of thousands of employees, and out of that, a good subset of employees are involved in software projects in one form or the other. They have tons of projects that is software that is built in-house, where they write the code themselves. In other cases, they are managing software provided by vendors, but they may be extending it by writing different plugins or integrations for those third-party tools. And then you have a hybrid or mix of all of these. So they're dealing with a wide variety of software in terms of programming languages, technology stacks, dealing with some cutting-edge technology stacks, as well as legacy technology, including mainframe, right? So you have all of these different technology stacks, and then you obviously need to ensure that not only do you have a robust software development process, but you also need to make sure that security is not overlooked, especially because this particular sector is highly regulated and the fines can be very severe. So you really cannot afford to make any huge mistakes in terms of lapse in security. Now, when we engaged this particular customer, what we found was that even though application security scans were required, they were not, the policy was not very well defined, right? So there were teams that were doing scans pretty regularly. Maybe they would do a scan right before they release, while other teams would get exceptions and end up doing just a few scans every year, which is far from ideal, because as we know, the rate of software development is ever increasing. And also the threat model is becoming more complex, because there are a lot of more moving parts than before. Developers use a ton of third-party and open source dependencies, and this just compounds the problem to a next level. So you really cannot afford to do just a few scans every year. But in a lot of projects for this particular customer, that's what we found, and that's not ideal at all. And then the other thing is that a lot of the application security scans were happening very close to the release process. And if you find any issues, it would end up delaying the release, or the teams will end up getting an exception saying that I'm going to fix these issues after the release. And again, as we can determine, none of this is ideal. And the other problem they had was that they were using a variety of application security scanning tools. So they were using tools like Veracode for SAST, or static application security testing. They were using tools like Nexus IQ for open source dependency scanning. And then they were using different tools for legacy technologies, like mainframe, and then there were specific programming languages like Ruby, which they were using some open source scanning tools for those. So now the problem is that you have separate scanning tools based on technology stack or based on team, and they produce results in different formats. So how do you make sense of all of this? And also, it's very time consuming to run all of these scans, one by one, and then gathering all of the results, getting rid of some of the false positives and duplications, and having a meaningful way to track all of this. So these were some of the key problems that the customer was facing when we engaged with them. And they had some other limitations as well. So the first fact is, like we said, they were doing a lot of these scans manually. And this is not ideal at all. Ideally, these scans need to be automated. They need to be run as frequently as possible, and without any manual intervention. As soon as there's any code change, ideally, it should kick off all of the different types of scans that are relevant. And the other thing is, even if you automate this, you have to make sure that the policy for the scans that you do in the development environment, or while the developer is still developing the code, is applied in a different manner than the more strict policy that needs to be applicable when you are about to do a release, or when you have a pre-release or something you are deploying maybe to the QA environment or staging environment. So you need to be able to apply different levels of strictness in policies depending on what these tools support. The other is, like I said, reporting was a major challenge. They did not have a single sort of tool or dashboard that they could reference for the results from all of these different tools. The other thing is, because of how infrequent the scans were, and also the fact that a lot of these scans were triggered manually, a lot of scans were missing. So teams would say that, yes, they've done a scan, but then you realize that they did one or two scans for the release, but there were several other production releases that happened. And the other thing is, this is expensive in terms of the time and effort. So on one hand, you have the application security teams, which is not a very large team compared to the thousands of developers they had. It was a fairly small team that had to support all of these developers, that had to go after some of the dev teams if they were not fixing some of the critical issues on time. And it was a lot of manual back and forth between the application security team as well as the dev team. And obviously, even on the developer side, when they could be under pressure for a release to happen on time, but then now you add this additional pressure of having to triage all of these application security findings, and occasionally there would be false positives. It would take a good amount of bandwidth for the developers to process all of these. And again, as we know, time is money, and the more people that are involved in tackling these issues manually and spending a lot of time, it ends up becoming very expensive for the organization. And we might have heard of this term called shift left, where the idea is, can we really allow and empower the developers to tackle a lot of issues as early as possible in the development cycle? And in terms of application security and DevSecOps, the idea is, can we enable the developers to discover and remediate a majority of the application security issues pretty much while they are writing the code? Because if you look on the extreme end, where you discover issues during the release or right after the release, what is commonly found is that the teams may end up taking months to fix the issue because, on one hand, the application security team has to be able to catch up with the backlog of findings on their end, and then they need to communicate that to the dev team, and then the dev team needs to add it to their development backlog and prioritize, and then ship the fix to QA. They need to make sure they have they run through all of the manual or automated regression testing, and then eventually ship the fix to production. And in the extreme case, this can take months. On the other hand, even if you discover these critical security issues during the QA or testing process, it may end up at least taking a few weeks. So what's really ideal is, can the developers discover it as close as possible to the time when they are actually writing the code? And this can be enabled by some of the application security scanning tools that have IDE level integration, where they can do some more lightweight scanning on the code they are writing. More importantly, this can only happen if you are running most, if not all, of these application security scans as part of the CI/CD process. So as soon as the developer is pushing new code on their branch, it should immediately trigger not only the standard CI/CD process, but also a lot of the application security scans. And it should provide feedback to the developers in a meaningful way. Now, when you are promoting the code to QA or pre-release, then it should ideally create issues or tasks for the developers in their development backlog. So if you're using something like Jira, what would be ideal is if any of these tools find anything that requires serious attention or something that has to be fixed within a specific SLA or specified time, then it should create those issues with the correct priority and put it directly into the development team's backlog to eliminate any of the manual back and forth, and to really reduce the time it takes for developers to discover these issues and then to prioritize them in a correct manner. Now, for this particular customer, they were using Jira software to manage the development backlog for all of their teams. And in terms of CI/CD and version control, in their case, they were using GitLab. And within GitLab, when we engaged with them, they already had the CI/CD process in place. But the application security scanning was happening manually, and it was happening either close to the release or post-release. So what we did was we integrated the process of running all of these application security scans as part of the CI/CD pipelines within GitLab itself. So as soon as a developer pushes some code into their branch, and this could even be code that is in progress, what GitLab would do is it would asynchronously run all of the different application security scans in parallel. And as some of you may know, a lot of these application security scans can take quite a bit of time to finish running. They could take minutes, and in some extreme cases, it can even take hours to finish the scan. So it is not ideal for GitLab to be blocked, right? You really need the build process to completely go through so that you can know whether your overall build was successful or not. So we designed this in a way where it would run these asynchronously without blocking the rest of the CI/CD pipeline within GitLab. The results would later be synchronized with Jira software. So some of these application security scan tools have built-in integrations with Jira. So for example, Nexus IQ and Veracode, some of the more widely used application security scanning tools, especially by a lot of enterprises. And they have the Jira plugin or add-on that can synchronize the findings. And you can define where what kind of critical issues would be synced with Jira. And you can also define what Jira project it should synchronize those issues to. So the whole goal is the development team doesn't need to look anywhere else. If any serious findings need their attention, it will get added directly into their development backlog within Jira. Once we implemented this, it had an overwhelmingly positive impact. So the first point, like I said, is our approach is to trigger these scans asynchronously. So this way it's not missing any of the scans. It's doing these scans for every change while not blocking the rest of the CI/CD pipeline. The developer doesn't need to just sit there and wait for pipeline to finish running for several minutes or hours. And the other thing is, potential vulnerabilities that these application security tools were discovering were reported directly into the team's backlog in Jira software. So the team just needs to, use a single tool to manage their regular development tasks as well as any, application security or vulnerability related tasks. This really enabled the developers to prioritize and to manage these potential vulnerabilities very early in the development lifecycle. They were not typically not doing this when they were close to QA or release. In terms of the teams and management, the advantage they had is now they can leverage the robust capabilities of the Atlassian suite and Jira in terms of using it to track and create a dashboard to manage all of these findings. And in terms of what features of Jira helps with this, so out of the box, Jira has tons of powerful features. Some of us who might be using Jira software for managing the software development lifecycle might be familiar with it. But these features are also applicable for utilizing those to track application security and DevSecOps. So once these findings are created in the form of Jira issues, you can add those to your Scrum or Kanban backlog if you are following one of these project management methodologies. And even if you're not using Scrum or Kanban, it ends up as part of your project. And then now you can utilize the additional features that Jira provides for tracking, reporting. So for example, out of the box, you can create a dynamic filter. So for example, you could create a filter where you can say that, all right, if the issue type is of type, security, and if the priority is critical or blocker, I want to create this dynamic filter, which will automatically be updated anytime new issues are created that satisfy this particular criteria. And once you have this filter, you can set up email a notification where you can ask it to email you anytime there are new results for this filter, or even better, we don't want to be overwhelmed with email. So you can take this filter and you can add it into the dashboard that Jira provides out of the box. Jira has a dashboard where you can add different gadgets like pie chart, like a list of issues, and a bunch of other reports. And a lot of these reports and gadgets can utilize your dynamic filter within Jira. And apart from all of these built-in features that you can use to create your own custom dashboard, you can also utilize some additional apps or plugins from the Atlassian marketplace. So for example, if you want to include some advanced business intelligence style reports, you can also install Jira apps like EasyBI that provide you full-fledged business intelligence level reports apart from these built-in reports. So the other thing is you may have some internal process that you want to automate. So for example, if the SLA for these issues is breached, or if critical or blocker issues are not resolved for some time, you may want to notify some other tool. And Jira has a robust development SDK, which you can use to create your own custom apps if you need to, or Jira can fire off webhooks that you can intercept in your own custom code or some other third-party software in order to integrate all of these together. So Jira can act almost as as a gateway that you can use to integrate with all sorts of other tools. So developers can manage the backlog within Jira, as well as all of the other tools can also talk to each other through Jira. And even in the case of this customer, they ended up using a lot of these features. So we created some custom plugins for Jira because they needed to integrate that with some of their own internal tools. And we also use features like the Jira webhooks. And with the help of Jira as well as the entire Atlassian stack of tools, you can provide an end-to-end solution both for DevOps as well as DevSecOps. And this is the solution and approach that we use for our customer, which ended up being very successful. And we think that this is also a great framework that you can adapt for your own organization. However, it does leave us with one other problem. As I mentioned, even in the case of this customer, they were using several different application security scanning tools. But some of us, especially who are in the beginning stages of the DevSecOps journey, may want to minimize the number of application security tools that you need to use in order to do all of these different types of scans and security checks. And the number of tools is just increasing with the complexity of technology. So for example, with the increasing popularity of Docker containers and container orchestration using Kubernetes, that has also introduced some need for some additional scanning tools like container scanning tools, apart from a lot of the popular category of tools like static application security testing, dynamic analysis, the software composition analysis, which analyzes all of the open source dependencies and so on. So in terms of the strategy to reduce a lot of the need for these various different application security scanning tools, one way we think you can do that is by using the application security features of GitLab. So GitLab has a lot of different application security features built in, which eliminates or reduces the number of other external application security tools that you may need to use. So for example, it has built-in static application security testing. It has secrets detection, which is a feature that can automatically scan your source code for hard-coded credentials or API keys. It has integration with different code quality tools. It can also enable a dynamic application security testing, which is a kind of testing where you run live attacks against a test deployment of your app. It also has a dependency scanning, which analyzes external dependencies and libraries, including open source libraries that your project may be using, and it will try to discover any vulnerabilities that you may have in those open source or external dependencies. The other is on the topic of open source, a lot of organizations they may support the use of open source libraries and code in their own custom projects, but they have a policy in terms of what kind of open source licenses are permitted. Open source software typically has a type of software license associated with it. So for example, there are very permissive open source licenses like MIT, but then there are some more restrictive licenses like GPL. So some enterprises have a strict policy where they say that no, you cannot use any libraries or open source code with GPL license. But now when you have this large organization with hundreds or thousands of developers, it's not possible to manually track the license of each and every library that they're using. So you need a tool that can check for license compliance. So there are some specific third-party tools that you can get, or if you decide to go with GitLab, then it has this license compliance check built in as well. And GitLab has added a bunch of other security features over the years as well. So with GitLab, you can still use Jira software for managing the backlog because GitLab has excellent integration with Jira software, but it really reduces the application security tool sprawl, where you have to have like multiple tools. Typically, you just need like a separate tool for each of these different scans. So GitLab is one way to go. So in the case of our customer, they wanted to use different application security scanning tools, but we still united all of those by making them part of the CI/CD pipeline within GitLab. And you can do the similar thing, right? So if your organization decides to use all of these separate tools, we can help you integrate those into your CI/CD tool of choice. But if you are starting out or you want to reduce the number of tools, then we certainly recommend leveraging the features of GitLab that I just mentioned. Now, the one other question we get frequently is, what does the process of implementing DevSecOps look like typically? So at a very high level, right, we always like to suggest doing a brief assessment where we assess the health and the maturity level of your organization's current application security process. And based on our findings, we would mutually define a goal in terms of the future state of where you want to be and what the maturity level should be. And we help you do a proof of concept where we take one or two of your projects and then implement that entire framework of integrating DevSecOps as part of your CI/CD lifecycle, like I mentioned. So we help you build out the proof of concept for this kind of implementation. And then the next is you would provide feedback as part of the UAT process. And then beyond the proof of concept, either we can train you where you can now implement this for the rest of your projects, or if you need help with the implementation as well, we do that. And then we provide ongoing support regardless of what route you go. So that was it in terms of the content I had. And I guess let's check if we have any questions that I can answer.
Thank you, Himanshu.
Yes, so one, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, please take a questions. But we almost have run out of time. So if the questions are remaining, we will definitely take it offline and we'll answer the questions. So yeah, it was very, really very beneficial to understand how we have implemented the case study, and we hope that this will definitely help our audience to implement DevSecOps. Also, you can apply free DevSecOps assessment, and for ebook, please fill the feedback form, which link we will share right now, and avail the offer for free assessment over there. Or you can contact us at marketing@addteq.co.in, or you can just fill in the inquiry form on our website, that is addteq.co.in. So with that, we have a poll question 3. So yeah, and then we will share the links. And meanwhile, if there are any questions, we will try to answer it in meanwhile as well. So poll questions: what is the time frame you are planning to initiate DevSecOps initiative? And after that, we will try to take a couple of questions. And it's already a time limit has means crossed. So yeah, we will try to keep it very short. So yeah, we have 20 seconds for it. And we will be also sharing you a slide deck and a recording of this session. So yeah, please feel to reach out to us on our email ID. Yeah, so a majority of people are saying that they don't have a plan as of now, or already working. That's 44%. 0 to 3 months 16%, 3 to 6%, and 6 to 12 months is 34%. So that's all for today's session, and sorry for not able to cover all the questions, but we will definitely get back to you. Thank you all.